2nd, 2017 has now been called to order. We will have the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance by Mr. Collins. Please stand.
Let's take a moment of silence for the little 14-year-old boy that lost his life on the first part of the week, and also for the family, the couple that died in the house fire. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, amen. First, giving God all the honor and praise for this day, which He is the head of my life. God, you said where 2 or 3 are gathered, you are in their midst. I want you to take control of this meeting and lead us and guide us to the best decision we can make for our brothers and sisters. Would you all join me in the Lord's Prayer? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Madam Secretary, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. Antipont?
Here.
Mr. Harris?
Here.
Vice President Brain?
Here.
Mr. Collins?
Here.
Mr. Farnum?
Here.
Mr. Guillory?
Here.
Mr. Hunter?
Here.
Mr. Landry?
Here.
Mr. Tour?
Here.
Ms. Mayo? Here. Mr. McMillan? Mr. Scott?
Here.
Mrs. Trimmy is unable to attend. Mr. White?
Here.
And President Guidry.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Just a point of housekeeping notes. If there's anyone that has a cell phone or any type of pager, we ask that you would silence that device at this time, please. And if there's anyone that has to speak on any of the items, there are some blue slips in the rear of the room. Please fill those out and bring those to Ms. Jessica here up front, and she'll make sure that we get those slips. With that said, we'll proceed. Item number 4, consideration of adopting a resolution to be presented to the Honorable Randy Roach, Mayor of Lake Charles, in recognition of 17 years of distinguished and dedicated services to the citizens of Southwest Louisiana. Would you come forth, Mr. Mayor, and I would also like you to meet Mr. Beam at the podium, please.
If you don't mind, Mr. Guidry, if you can indulge me, if we can allow Randy to sit a little while before he comes up.
Okay.
And when we're done, we can have you come down. I know you have a presentation.
More than likely.
After 17 years, we take a little time, but I appreciate the opportunity. Kevin has asked me to read through the resolution in a moment, and with your permission, Mr. President, just if I could take it on a personal note, because
Yes.
we have worked very closely with Mayor Roach. I just want to thank you for years of friendship and working together on many things. Obviously, the city of Lake Charles and the parish have to work on dozens, hundreds of things that most people don't see most of that. But I can assure you that as many things as we have to do, and they're complicated sometimes, it has made all the difference in the world when you have sides that come together because you want to do the right thing. It's hard enough even then, but and I can tell you, Randy has been great to work with during that time, and personally I've been very enriched by that. A quick story, and this gets into Randy's tenure a bit. When back in, I think it was October of 2000, and I may be a little off on that. If you'll recall, Randy was elected initially to fill the unexpired term of Mayor Willie Mount, who became state senator. And the original Millennium Park opened then, and my wife Edith and I took our 3-year-old son Andrew to that at the time, and I can remember holding Andrew up high, and Randy gave a talk to open the park, and I realized then, I thought, he just became mayor, and yet he captured the moment, and that, you know what it's been in all that time, how much that park has meant to the area. I think he had a hard hat on that day, if I'm not mistaken, which is good safety. But my son turns 20 tomorrow. And if you, just on a personal note, thinking of your child going from 3 to 20 in that period, Randy has been mayor, and for 17 years, which, by the way, I think most of you know, that's the longest tenure of any mayor in the city, and the city turns 150 years old this year. That is quite impressive, but it's as impressive as the list of Randy's accomplishments are in working with his good staff and council, it is the way that he's conducted himself that I just wanted to comment on. Randy is a man of high character. He has a heart for service. He has vision. But I think above all, Randy has demonstrated he has a love for the people of Southwest Louisiana. And as much as he's official mayor of Lake Charles, it affects everything in the parish, everything in the region, and indeed the state. Y'all know that, we know it, but sometimes it just needs to be said, and I greatly appreciate this service. And with your permission again, Mr. President, I'll go ahead and read through the resolution. Yes. I know y'all will have some comments, but let me just read through this. Whereas Mayor Randy Roach was born in and a lifelong resident of Lake Charles, Louisiana, graduated from LaGrange High School and earned an undergraduate degree in accounting and law from Louisiana State University. And whereas from 1985 to 87, Mayor Roach served as the assistant city attorney for the city of Lake Charles, representing all phases of the Chenault Consolidation Project, which of course has been a big deal. Whereas Mayor Roach served 2 terms from 1988 to 96 as state representative in the Louisiana legislature, representing District 36, served on several committees and task forces. Whereas in 1998, Mayor Roach was appointed by Governor Mike Foster to serve as chairman of the governor's task force for a very well-known program, the timed program that 4-laned a lot of roads in this state, which we all use today. Whereas elected as mayor of the city of Lake Charles in 2000, re-elected in 2001, 2005, 2009, 2013, for a total of 17 years, Mayor Roach has worked closely with city and parish governments and other agencies to form partnerships, pool resources that benefit not only Lake Charles, but the entirety of Southwest Louisiana. Whereas Mayor Roach has received numerous prestigious awards during his tenure as a public servant and will long be remembered for the immeasurable contributions he has made. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Police Jury of Calcasieu Parish, Louisiana, in regular session convened on this the 2nd day of March 2017, that it does hereby recognize and commend Mayor Randy Roach on his exemplary and dedicated service spanning over 32 years, which has had a positive impact on the quality of life for all citizens within the Southwest Louisiana region. Thus done and passed on the date inscribed. Congratulations, Mayor Roach. Mr. President, I think if you would, I think it would be appropriate, I'll let Randy come on up, but before he makes comments, I know you and some of the jurors would like a few words.
We do.
And we'll take it from there.
Please come forth, Mayor.
Kind of nervous, Kevin.
No, we'll be easy on your promise.
Okay.
Mr. Breen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Randy, I could say pretty much what Randy said, but I just, just thank you for your service.
Thank you.
As mayor. I consider you my friend. You're a class act, and just really appreciate everything that you've done for the city. You know, when I was president in 2011, it was really my time that you and I kind of had the opportunity to work together on a lot of issues, and I'll never will forget that. And so I just want to thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Mr. Landry.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, Randy, I've been here as long as you've been across the street there, and I echo everything that Brian said. And I tell you one thing is while you served, it never was about you, and if you know what I mean. And I thank a lot of you for that. It was about the people, and I tell you, you're everywhere. And a lot of people that I speak to, they'll just say, he's just everywhere. and if we could bottle up that energy, I definitely could take a dose of it. But you really have. You've served with honor and dignity, and people in the community, I want to tell you, they really think a lot of you. And thank you so much for everything that you've done.
Thank you. I appreciate
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Landry. Mr. Fornham.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Don't talk about my baseball talent.
I do have the rare privilege of being able to occupy a softball field with you for about 2 different tournaments. That was a lot of fun, but above and beyond all that, I've never seen you actually speak from a piece of paper, so it's always come from your heart. And it just exemplifies what a public servant you are, that it's never about you, it's always about what's going on, the things that are going on, and I just can't say enough about that. I just respect and honor you beyond imagination. So thank you for everything that you've done for the city of Lake Charles. Like Brian said, you're not just the face of the city of Lake Charles, you're a face of Southwest Louisiana, and no matter where you go, people know who Randy Roach is and what you stand for, and thank you for that.
Mr. Andrew Point.
Thank you, Mr. President. You accept accolades from the west side of the river?
I certainly would. I love the west side.
I, too, want to congratulate you, Randy. You and I have been in a lot of functions together over the years. I was here when you were state representative. You did a good job when you were there. There was not a doubt in my mind that you were not going to continue to do that hard work it became when you became mayor of the city of Lake Charles. The thing that impressed me about you, one of the things that impressed me about you is the number of functions that you attended in the 17 years that you've been mayor. I don't know how you did it. I don't want to know because I ain't going to do it. But I congratulate you for that, and that shows to me that you were there for the right reasons. It was to represent the people of the city of Lake Charles, and I think they owe you a lot of gratitude. I know I do, and I don't live here, so. That being said, I yield back, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Andrew Point. Mr. Hunter.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I don't think it's any secret when you are running for mayor, you will run a poll to kind of, see what the numbers are and get a feel. And my consultants told me the first thing when our poll came back was, Nick, you better be very lucky that you're not running against Randy Roach, because he's one of the most popular individuals and one of the most liked individuals we've ever seen in our career as consultants. And I think that's because of your service. And it's so easy for people to paint politicians with a broad stroke, and you have always been an individual that is my example of what public service is, because it is not about you, it's about the people, and you care, and the city is better because of your care, and the city is better because of your dedication and your sacrifice. And I know it has not always been easy, and I know it can be a thankless job sometimes. And as a citizen of Lake Charles, I thank you for where we are today, and I know that's because of you and people you work with, but also because of you, Randy. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. Scott.
Mayor Roach, I've learned 2 things. That I should listen and that I should watch. And listening and watching you throughout these years has made me a better public servant, because just like Mr. Farnham says, it comes from the heart. And you can't truly serve a community unless you have that heart. And I think you have the biggest heart around here for this community. And I just hope that I can continue to follow such great integrity for the people of this Southwest Louisiana. So thank you. I look forward to seeing where you're going to serve next, because real servants never stop, and I know you won't. So thank you so much.
Mr. White.
Mr. Randy, it's probably 20 years old when I first met you, when my wife and your daughter were friends, and I knew then, first meeting you, that you were somebody that I would grow to admire, and hopefully I could follow within your shoes to do the dedication that you've showed the citizens of Lake Charles. Hopefully I can do the same with my role with the parish. Like everybody else, appreciate your service that you've done for Lake Charles. It's been great to watch. Thank you. I yield back.
Mr. Guillory.
Thanks, Mr. President. Randy, you've been a friend, a great friend. You and I at everything, all over the place, everywhere. I just want to say, wherever's next, call me first. I'll be right there walking with you. Thank you, Randy.
Thank you, Tim.
Mr. Barris.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mayor Roach, in a past life, I was in the television business, and being in the TV business crew, I'll never forget, and I won't ever forget, how many things that you would be called in to speak for, do the commercial for,
and every one of them, it didn't matter what it was, every one of them, you'd swear it was your idea that they were having it. You were just as pumped about doing the commercial, and, you know, you weren't bothered, and you treated everybody there. I'll never forget that. And, you know, you even I remember one time I was playing at a function, maybe at Burton Coliseum, and I look over, and here's Randy Roach sitting there playing the guitar right behind me. It's like, what do, you know? So anyway, I hope I've enjoyed knowing you. It doesn't stop today. I hope that retirement is all that you want it to be, and whatever that entails. So thank you for your service.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. With that, Mayor, we have a special presentation we would like to give you at this
Anybody
time.
running for your seat?
Those are 2 people that I know of.
Do you have a short PowerPoint?
Brian said I had to leave
Tom.
the office.
Tom, do you have that? Now, this is what
Oh, no.
I want everybody in Southwest Louisiana look at. This is the type of mayor we serve, guys.
Oh, my God.
At an LSU game, the biggest game of last year was the Alabama game. Who's there with me on the sideline? Now, I'm a former player, but how did he get on the sideline? Because he knows the right people. And that picture will always be dear to me, Mayor, because of what we did that day and the fun we had. And I just want you to know that's a special picture to me,
Well, thank you.
very much. This is something that we want to give you on behalf of the Calcasieu Parish Police Jury, your service and your dedication. And the one thing that I think a lot of people, Mayor, get caught up in, that the key word and what made you so popular, that made you so well-known, you was fair. I go all over this city, and everybody say the same thing about you as a mayor. You was just fair. It didn't matter what color you was, didn't matter what your ethnic background was, didn't matter where you lived, where you stayed, you was fair. And I tell you what, that's something, Mayor, you can't teach. It's got to be within you.
Thank you.
And it's always been within you.
Thank you.
And this is what I'd like to give you. In recognition of 17 years of distinguished and dedicated service to the citizens of Southwest Louisiana, presented to you today, the 2nd day of March, 2017, from the Calcasieu Parish Police Jury, and your president, Kevin Gidry.
Thank you.
Mayor, we love you,
Thank you.
and we're going to miss
Appreciate
you.
you.
Thank you so much.
Wes, you got that PowerPoint? I really am speechless. Wes, you said something about not having notes. I just don't know how to thank you for honoring me and for the kind words. I'm just overwhelmed, but thank you so much. I have truly been the one who's been blessed by the service of the last several years, but working with you and others like you that have been here over the years, and the partnerships that we've been able to work on, the things that we've been able to do for the benefit of all the community, you know, and all the residents of Southwest Louisiana. And Brian, thanks to you. Brian touched on, I really have appreciated the openness and the lines of communication and the staff working together on different things. And like he said, there's so many different things that happen that we have to work on, and we have to figure out, and we have to, you know, work through some of the more difficult issues that come up in some of these, you know, decisions that have to be made in providing services. But I want to thank you, each and every one of you, not just for honoring me today, but for what you have done to honor this community over the years in your respective districts, in your respective fields of service, because you are the ones that have lived that life of a local elected official. And you know, some people talk about you know, in Washington or Baton Rouge, and they make policy, but here we live policy, and we have to really figure out how to make it work and how to connect the dots. And sometimes we have to be the messenger, but every time that we work on something, I know that your interest is in the best interest, not only of the parish, but of the community of Southwest Louisiana that we serve. So I want to thank you, each and every one of you, for your service. And there's nothing that I can do to really express any more appreciation than by simply saying thank you. I really am. It's just it's very meaningful to me. It's been a wonderful 17 years, and you will all be a part of that memory that I will carry with me forever, wherever I go, wherever I do, and it'll always be part of me, and you're a part of that as well. So thank you again, and it's been an honor to work with you, and I appreciate all the kindness that you've expressed tonight. I do want to just say one thing. Where is she? There she is. Carol, stand up. Stand up. You know how Jessica is to Brian? Carol is to Randy, okay? And Carol has been there 17 years, and she's done a remarkable job. She could tell you some stories, but we'll leave it at that. But again, thank you, and again, Brian, thank you for all that you do as administrator. I know the difficult job that you have, and I know how you handle that position and that responsibility, and you yourself do it with dignity and grace, and you have the interest of this parish and this police jury and these individual members at heart in everything that you do. And you've got a wonderful team behind you, and we're very fortunate as the people of Calcasieu Parish to have that type of team working for us. So thank you all very much. Thank you.
One last thing, if I could, President Guidry has asked for a group picture. If y'all could step down in the middle here, we'll get Randy and before everybody leaves. While you're gathering, I will mention, if Randy doesn't mind, Nancy was going to come tonight, but Randy and Nancy have a new granddaughter, and she's over in Lafayette, so that's something, of course, he's very proud of.
We're going to do one with Carol when we finish.
We need to double row it.
I think we'll be all right. We'll just squeeze in real good.
I'm sure you're saying.
Hang on.
I'm standing here to make me look good.
One, two, three. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
We'll get Miss Carol.
Put this on the wall.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Hey, that picture's gonna be over Southwest Louisiana, I promise you. I promise you.
Oh, yeah?
All right.
Good job, brother.
Night, Randy. You already did that. Come on now.
Thank you all again very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Randy.
I have a motion by Mr. Barris, and I have a second by Mr. Landry to adopt the ordinance. The resolution, any discussion? Any objection? Motion carry. Item number 5, presentation by Melissa Daigle regarding the Community Rating Systems Program for Public Information under the National Flood Insurance Program. Ms. Daigle, please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm Melissa Daigle, and I'm from 6112 Tennyson Drive, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. So I'm a research attorney with Louisiana Sea Grant. We are housed at LSU, but we work across the whole coast. And I've been working with Cameron, Calcasieu, and Vermilion on what's called a program for public information. And so I'm just going to give you guys a little bit of an introduction to that. Hopefully I'll only take about 10 minutes, but if I'm going too fast, you have questions, please feel free to interrupt me and tell me to explain something a little more. And so a little bit of an overview of the National Flood Insurance Program. So in 2012, we saw rates skyrocket because of the Bigger Waters Act, which was eventually, some of it was undone through the Homeowner Flood Insurance Affordability Act. But we know that the program is going to be reauthorized this year, and so we're helping communities do as much as they can to reduce flood insurance rates as much as possible. And the way that communities can do that is through the community rating system. And this is the only way that you can discount flood insurance rates in communities. And basically what it is a class system. And so communities earn points for doing different activities. There's a giant user's manual that's about 4 inches thick, front and back, of all the things that you can do to earn points. And how many points you earn corresponds to a class, and each class is an additional 5% discount in the special flood hazard area. Now, Calcasieu is fantastic because you guys not only are in the community rating system, but y'all are a Class 8. So your residents are seeing that discount on their flood insurance bills every time they get one in the mail, which is fantastic for the community. But it would be even better down the road to be a Class 7 or a 6 or a 5, and so that's kind of what we've been working on, is how to get as many points as possible. And so there are 4 classifications of activities that communities can do to get points. And so they have public information activities, mapping and regulations, flood damage reduction activities, warning and response. And what we've been working under is that public information activities classification. And specifically on outreach projects. And so communities can earn points by doing outreach, and that includes doing commercials on the local television channel, to sending out flyers with energy bills, to setting up booths at festivals. There are a number of different outreach projects that you can do to earn points. And a number of points you can get are capped at 350, but it takes a lot of projects to get up to that 350 points. And while outreach a lot of times is not terribly expensive, if you're doing things like mailing and printing, it can add up. And so what you really want to do is maximize the amount of points that you're getting for every activity that you're doing. And so, for example, if Sea Grant comes in and gives a presentation that counts for points, you get a 30% multiplier because it's delivered by another organization. So you want other groups coming in and explaining the same messages that your community is giving out. There's also a 40% multiplier if the outreach project is in what's called a program for public information, which is what we've been working on. And so if, let's say you do a mailer to your community and you get 10 points for that, if you have that as part of a program for public information, that same mailer will get you 14 points. So it's a way to maximize and basically just get the most bang for your buck for the outreach and the work that your community is doing anyway. And so a little bit about the project that we've been working on. In 2014, myself and an attorney from the Mississippi-Alabama Sea Grant Legal Program went after some funding from the EPA to cover our time and travel to work with, in Mississippi, the city of Biloxi, and in Louisiana, we're working with Cameron, Calcasieu, and Vermilion. And so we got that grant. It was a 2-year grant, and so it's just wrapping up. And what we're doing is drafting and seeking approval for a program for public information. Basically, think of it as an outreach plan. You have information about the risk to your community in it, and then you talk about what can you do to help make sure residents of the community are aware of those risks, and what are the outreach projects that you have planned. And since Calcasieu is already in the CRS program, they're already doing outreach, and by having it organized in this document, it makes sure that they're getting the most points for those activities. The objective of the program for public information is to make sure that outreach is designed to meet local needs and is monitored and evaluated to make sure it's working effectively. There are several steps to creating a PPI, and we've now been through almost all of the steps. We established a PPI committee, and I do have a draft of the document here for everyone. You can see all the names of the committee and what communities they're from. You have to meet a certain amount of times. You have to go through a self-assessment, formulate messages, and identify outreach projects. examine other public information initiatives, and then prepare the document. Currently, the document has been presented to the National Flood Insurance Program Administrator for a cursory review. What will happen is once we get their feedback, hopefully in the next week or two, we will adjust the document, and then the document has to be adopted by the community. And so we're not asking for you guys to vote on anything today, but hopefully maybe in May, I'll be back to talk about, can we adopt this and move forward with it. It has to be adopted in order for those bonus points to count toward the CRS program. And then it has to be evaluated, and an evaluation report must be done once a year. And some of the project deliverables, we've had several meetings with the project team members and the communities. Both PPIs for Biloxi and for the Cameron, Calcasieu, and Vermilion communities are in draft form and have been submitted for a cursory review. And the communities have reviewed them. And of course, they worked very closely with me on the drafting of it. And so our multi-jurisdictional PPI, and I'll go ahead and just pass this down if that's okay. It contains a number of target areas, target audiences, certain messages that would be beneficial to these 3 communities, as well as a strategy for adoption, evaluation, and implementation. We're going to have a website developed about the project and just talking about some of the lessons learned and best practices, how can other communities benefit from doing this kind of work, what would we recommend in terms of when they go to do their PPI. And that's it. So the draft PPI is going around. I do have some more copies if anyone in the audience wants a copy. And so like I said, we're not asking for a vote or anything today, but maybe in a couple months, hopefully after the National Flood Insurance Program reviews it and they give us back their feedback, we'll be back. So I'd love to answer any questions about the project.
Yes, Ms. Daigle, we do
Yes.
have some jurors that have questions.
Absolutely.
And thank you for your presentation, ma'am.
No problem.
Mr. Scott.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Daigle. I know it's been several years y'all been working at this very hard, but Ms. Dana, and there's a lot behind this. This is a very small portion of the CRS, so thank you for what you've been doing for our community. I know it's going to continue to pay off in the future. I just wish we could fix all the other problems. But for this PPI, this is great. This is great information. It's a great way to reach out to the public, really get public input and some just good information overall. So thank you again for what you've done.
You're welcome. I've had a great time working with Dana and Lori and everyone else who's been working on the project. And I plan on, even though the grant has ended, I'm going to keep, they're not getting rid of me. I'm going to keep coming. So,
Mr. White.
I guess this question's more for Alan. Alan, part of the coalition we're doing for the flood and drainage with the flood range or what have you, will we get points for that, for the floodway?
So make sure I understand the question. For the floodway, some of the regulations that we're proposing should.
Correct. For the floodplain.
For the floodplain, all those things should play favorably in the CRS program in terms of points, whether they end up, Dana may have better insight, whether they end up being able to somehow shift us to the next class or not. I guess that's a wait and see thing, but everything we do, like you saw on those lists earlier in the PowerPoint, regulations and things that help protect, that's obviously the things that'll get us more points.
Thank you,
Mr. White. Mr. Barris.
Thank you, Mr. President. I guess I'm going to just fire the question out. This, and maybe Mr. Boland may be able to handle this, that bridge restoration project that are over drainage laterals, I mean, is this something that would help us out as far as this initiative?
I will have to double check, Mr. Barris, but I think that's a separate issue.
Okay.
Because each individual bridge kind of stands on its own merit.
Okay.
So I will check on that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Barris. Any other jurors? Back to you, Mr. Scott.
This is just one small part. Maybe if I could adjust the jurors for, this is just one small part of the CRS. This is just the public information side of it to really get people information and, keep them informed with all the changes that are being made. But as far as there are so many things that we do here that can qualify, and yes, our drainage, our resources, our studies, if we do a regional detention, anything we do will build into that process. But I was in a meeting just a couple days ago at the federal level, and it was very clear that this is a great program. If you quit changing every time I get ready to jump over the pole, you make it a little bit higher. So, you know, we're chasing something that we have to continue to chase, but they do change the rules on us quite frequently. So, you know, that's as public officials, we really have to stay on top of how do we make sure that the goals that they set that we're chasing can somehow level out. And hopefully that's going to happen over the next few years. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Mr. Hunter?
Thank you, Mr. President. Ms. Daigle, have you ever seen counties or parishes partner with insurance companies for the public outreach portion when it comes to flood insurance?
So that's actually a great group to partner with, because they're reaching part of your target audience. And if you can get them to put their logo on whatever message, then you get those bonus points, right? So it's great. It's really great to partner with anyone.
I was just thinking about the cost, as you were saying, with mailing or advertising, perhaps to consolidate some of those costs with an insurance company, or even on the state level, if we're talking about multiple parishes, perhaps the state would want to partner with the parishes.
We've also seen energy companies will include just a single, sheet flyer with an electric bill. We've seen like Biloxi does that, where they print it, but the electric company agrees to put it in with their bill when it goes out, which is another good way to partner and to get the information out.
Sounds good. Thank you. Thank you,
You're
Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Hunter. Any other jurors? Ms. Daigle, we thank you for your presentation, and thank you so much, and please keep in touch with us.
Yes, I'll be back. Thanks.
Can I have a motion to receive report?
Move to receive report.
I have a motion by Mr. Landry and a second by Mr. Latour. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carry. Item number 6, take appropriate actions on applications for liquor and beer permits. Mr. Crane.
Mr. President, we have 3 applications before you
Move to
tonight.
approve.
We
Second.
recommend that they be approved.
I have a motion by Mr. Fornum and a second by Mr. Calvin. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carry. Item number 7, consideration of approving payment of all current invoices. I have a motion by Mr. Andrew Point and a second by Mr. Barris. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carry. Item number 8, consideration of approving the minutes of the regular meeting of the police jury dated February the 2nd, 2017. I have a motion by Mr. Guillory and a second by Mr. Calvin. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carry. Item number 9, consideration of approving the Public Works Committee report dated February the 23rd,
Move on 9.
2017.
Second.
Mr. Barris.
Thank you, Mr. President. My report dated February 23rd, 2017. Item A, presented a retirement certificate to Mr. Robert Dodrell in recognition of 9+ years of dedicated service. Item B, received a presentation from staff regarding the 10th Annual Alcohol-Free Family Zone. Item C, recommended that a resolution be adopted approving an active sale agreement for the purchase of property for the Corbello Road Bridge Replacement Project. Item D, recommended that a resolution be adopted approving an active sale agreement for the purchase of property for the South Frontage Road Project. Item E, recommended that a resolution be adopted approving an amendment to the professional services consulting contract between the police jury and CSRS for the Old Spanish Trail KCS Overpass Project. Item F, recommended that a resolution be adopted approving an amendment to the professional services consulting contract between the police jury and CSRS for the Calcasieu Parish Transportation Initiative. Item G, recommended that the parish engineer be authorized to advertise for the following projects. Number 1, Corbello Road Bridge Replacement Projects. Number 2, River Road Bridge Replacement Project. And number 3, Parish Barn Road Bridge Replacement Project. Item H, recommended that a resolution be adopted accepting Wallace Point Phase 1 subdivision. And then recommended item I, recommended that a resolution be adopted accepting Pentangeli Row subdivision. Item J, advised that the annual rabies vaccination clinics would be held at the West Cal Arena on Saturday, March 18th, 2017, and the Burton Coliseum on Saturday, April 1st, 2017. That is the end of my report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Barris. I have a motion by Mr. Barris and a second by Mr. Farnum. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carry. Item number 10, consideration of approving the Agenda Committee report dated February the 23rd, 2017. I have a motion by Mr. Farnum and a second by Mr. Calvin. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carry. Item number 11, no action necessary. On February 2nd, 2017, the applicant withdrew the request. Item number 12, take appropriate actions on a request by Ms. Talisha Bertrand to rezone from agricultural to general commercial to allow general commercial development, auto truck sales at 2118 Highway 109 South in Ward 7.
Yes, sir. I'm just trying to,
Okay, Ms. Bertrand, state your name and address for the record, ma'am.
okay, my name is
Move to
Talisha.
discuss.
Okay.
Motion to discuss. Give me a second.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Hunter to discuss and a second by Mr. Brain. You may proceed, miss.
My name is Talisha Bertrand. I reside at 2118 Highway 109 South, Vinton, Louisiana, 70668. I'm here to discuss the fact that I'm trying to obtain a used car dealer license from my residential property. I just need it to be commercialized so that I can obtain the license.
Go ahead, Mr. Barris.
Go ahead, Mr. Barris, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Okay, Ms. Bertrand, she has a residence, and to get the license that she is after, she needs to be zoned such, what she's going after. We heard this a little bit a while back on the January 19th meeting, and I see what Planning and Zoning Board voted, but since then, we put a 120-space RV park right down the road from her that was passed wonderfully. She's not planning on having a huge car lot, with a lot of inventory, probably 1 to 3 cars. If you got any questions for her, let her answer the questions, but I really don't have a problem with it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. Barris. Mr. Scott.
Mr. Crane, I'm looking at all the stipulations that might be placed on this if it is passed, but I don't see anything in here where anybody tried to stipulate how many cars she could keep at a certain time. Would that be a stipulation that would be legal to put in here? I guess maybe Mr. Could we stipulate it once we give her this, if we give her this C2, could we then stipulate 3 cars only, 5 cars only? Or is that, now we're getting a little,
Well,
I guess either one of you.
Sam, if you want to answer that, you can, but I guess if you're trying to limit impact, and lessen impact, you can certainly impose certain, conditions on it that would lessen the impact around the area. And so that may be something that you could consider.
All right, Ms. Bertrand, so just because we're under discussion right now, you did mention that you didn't need a lot of cars. Is there an amount of cars you would be acceptable with, saying, I want to keep no more than this many, and you can put it in the records, or would you rather not go that route, just for discussion?
Sure, I'm okay with stipulations. If you look at the site plan, there's not room for probably more than 5 or 6 cars. I don't really need inventory on the location. I wholesale. They go straight from auction to dealer in transport. I never even usually ever see a vehicle. I see it, but I don't actually bring it anywhere. It goes on a transport truck from one location to another location.
Are you going to are you doing a home office in there? Are you going to build a small office?
No, a home office. My budget's very low. I'm just trying to get started. If I have a need to move at some point and open a larger location, that would be wonderful. But at this time, this is the ability that I have.
Would you be all right with stipulating in here that if you sold the property, it would revert back to the original zoning?
Sure.
Because once we go to C2, you could sell it tomorrow, and who knows what there's a lot of things people could put there.
Sure,
So
yeah.
I'll just leave it up to Mr. Barris. I just brought it up for discussion. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Mr. Brain?
Thank you, Mr. President. I agree, Ms. Bertrand. Judd, this is in your district, and you okay with it? Yeah, and as long as it converts back possibly after, you're out of the business, that's fine.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Mr. White?
I see that a traffic impact study is going to be done on that as well. What's around that could be hindering traffic there as well with this car lot?
Well, that stipulation, the drainage impact analysis and the traffic impact analysis would be, if it's required. We don't know. What we would do is submit that to engineering and see if it triggers that. It may not trigger.
All right. And just clarification, the last time we did talk about this, it was just for bring the cars in and then ship them out the next day. So you're not trying to have for sale signs or have an actual car lot there. It's just for a home office to import the cars in and out, correct?
That's correct, just to obtain the license.
Thank you.
Mr. Guillory?
Thank you, Mr. President. I think is the motion on the floor, is it to deny? or to overturn?
We're just discussing.
Okay, I'm sorry then. Thank you, Mr. President, thank you.
At this time, I'd like to go to legal counsel. Mr.
Well,
Singh?
if, Mr. President, if the discussion's over, I think the easiest way to do it, if the motion is going to be in favor of zoning or rezoning, maybe a motion to approve rezoning as requested, and if there are going to be stipulations added, that might be the easiest way to do it.
Okay. Mr. Barris, would you like to do that?
I would like to make a motion to overturn planning and zoning and add stipulations.
Okay.
We do that?
I have a motion by Mr.
Second.
Barris and a second by Mr. Brain. Any discussion?
Well,
Go ahead.
We still have discussion, but we just wanted to.
Need to go back to
Mr. President, if you don't mind, I know it's legal terms, but it's all in how it's worded, and I think we know the intent of Mr. Barris, but Sam maybe explain it. It's a little different than the way you worded it.
It is different. The motion to overturn, it's more difficult to add stipulations to that. We may have to do it in two separate motions to lessen the confusion.
Okay.
But the motion right now is a motion to overturn planning and zoning, which would allow the rezoning.
Okay.
You have
That's
to
what
take
we have
another
right now.
vote if that passes
Okay.
in favor of approving the request.
Okay.
You can
Is there
do
any
it.
opposition?
I think Mr. Barris would probably be okay with changing his motion just to accept the, instead of overturning.
Yeah.
We just do it in one motion instead of two. You're okay with that, aren't you?
Yes.
Okay. There you go.
Thank you.
So now the
Okay.
motion is to,
Go ahead, there's still more discussion.
Yeah, let's go and vote on the motion. I have a motion by Mr. Barris and a second by Mr. Brain. Is there any discussion?
I have discussion.
You have discussion.
He said add stipulations. So
Do I need to?
what are those stipulations?
It should say with stipulations,
Right now, there's no, right
So
now.
only the stipulations that are on this
Correct.
page? Okay.
What we have right now.
Yes.
Okay, so there was talk about reversion back. That's not a stipulation that
I
we're
do
going to
wanna-
adhere to, because that's not added right now.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Barris?
Thank you, Mr. President. At what point would I add the reversion stipulation?
Right now. If it passes. With the motion right now to overturn, we should probably take a vote on that.
Yeah, we
And then
will.
we'll start with a clean slate there, and
Okay.
then maybe come back with a motion to allow or approve rezoning as requested.
Okay.
And the stipulations could be added to that.
So right now, we have a motion on the floor to overturn planning and zoning. And Ms. Kathy, we will go to a roll call vote on that.
Who was against?
We won't.
Okay, wait. So, yes.
Just want to make sure we follow Robert Rules of Order.
Yes, it's to overturn, right?
Yes.
Yes.
This is to overturn.
Thank you, Ms. Kathy.
You're welcome. Mr. Angelpont?
Yes.
Mr. Barris?
Yes.
Mr. Frame?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mr. Farnum?
Yes.
Mr. Guillory?
Yes.
Mr. Hunter?
Yes.
Mr. Landry?
Yes.
Mr. Latour?
Yes.
Ms. Mayo?
Yes.
Mr. McMillan? I'm sorry, he's absent.
He said yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Mrs. Trumy is absent also, and Mr. White.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Kathy. The motion passed. Mr. Barris, at this time, would you like to add those stipulations?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. President.
It will now be a motion to approve rezoning as requested.
Have a motion by
So moved.
Mr. Barris and a second by
Second.
Mr. Landry.
And now, if there are any other stipulations to be added, be added as a supplemental motion.
Okay? And at this time, if there's any other stipulation that would like to be added, you may do so at this time.
Mr. President, I would like to add that the stipulation that the property revert back to the zoning that it is today, pending, if she sells the property.
I have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
I have a second by Mr. Landry. Any discussion?
I have a question.
We have discussion. Mr. Hunter?
So if we rezone this to C2, what we're saying is if she sells the property, it would revert back, not if she closes the business. Is that correct?
Should be both.
That's my understanding. Yes, that is correct. Am I correct with that, legal counsel? Is that what was
That's the
stated?
motion. That is the motion.
Okay.
Okay. All right, thank you.
We have discussion. Mr. Andrew Point?
It should be both, not just the one. Because she could close it tomorrow and still be C3, regardless, whatever this is on. So that you can have, couldn't you just add a stipulation or an addendum to the motion? Or do you have to make a separate motion?
You could modify it, you could vote on it. Right now, you've got a motion and a second to add a stipulation. That's what you have right now.
Well, then I would add exactly what Mr. Hunter said, that in the event she shuts the business down, that it would also revert back to the original zoning.
We still have discussion.
An amendment to that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Andrew Point. Mr. Pointer?
I think he just covered it. I think what the intent is that any other use besides this car lot
Right.
would be prohibited.
Right.
So I don't know what the best way to,
Exactly.
I think the motion that,
I think maybe what Ms. Francis said would
that would handle it.
cover
What
it.
Mr. proposed.
I'm good. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes.
Mr. Guillory?
I'm just wondering, are we putting in there the, like Dennis said, the amount of cars she can have?
We already did.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
No, that's not in here right now.
Point of clarification, Ms. Kathy, where are we right now on this matter? Because I'm just kind of going around the block like
I
Mr.
can
Landry
take a
said.
shot in the dark, I believe.
Long way,
Did
Yeah.
Mr. Andrew Pont get a second to
Yes.
his motion?
Yes, Mr. Hunter.
I think the motion on the floor is to approve the rezoning as requested, with the stipulations on the agenda, with an additional stipulation that the property, the zoning of the property would revert back to its current zoning if she sold the property or closes the business.
That is correct.
That is correct, Ms. Kathy.
Oh, boy.
Okay,
Y'all
any
want
other
a roll
discussion?
call vote?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Kathy.
Well,
We would need one.
all right. I'm good. I'm good.
Mr. Hunter, did you want to speak on that?
Well, thank you, Mr. President. Did you want to add amount of vehicles? Because that's not in here right now.
That would be good. 6. Because she used the number, did 6, didn't you?
I'm fine with that. Second.
Okay.
Okay.
It'd be great if they could just word that into one sentence and one motion, but we can keep doing it, it doesn't matter. That's what we're getting paid for, we just stay here till we get it
Ms.
done.
Kathy's getting ready to close us out right now, Mr. Landry.
I feel like I'm on
She
a car
Miss
lot.
Kathy can fix anything, I promise.
Yes, she can.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Kathy, if you would, we would like a roll call vote on this.
Should we restate the motion one more time?
We
Please,
probably
please,
should, yeah.
please restate the motion, Ms. Kathy, so we can all be clear as to how we're voting on this
No
matter.
pressure.
Thank you, Ms. Kathy.
Either way,
Oh,
I
you-
think I understand. I think the motion on the floor is to approve the request to rezone with the stipulations listed on the agenda and with an additional stipulation that the zoning of the property revert back to its current zoning should the business close or she sells the property, and with another stipulation that it be limited to a maximum of 6 automobiles or vehicles that can be parked on the property at one time.
Yes.
Yes.
And this will be a reverse roll call.
Thank you, Ms. Kathy.
You're welcome. Mr. White?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Ms. Mayo?
Yes.
Mr. Latour?
Yes.
Mr. Landry?
Amen, I mean, yes.
Mr. Hunter?
Yes.
Mr. Guillory? Mr. Farnum?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mr. Brain?
Yes.
Mr. Barris?
Yes.
And Mr. Ingersoll?
Yes.
The motion carried unanimous.
Thank y'all.
Ms. Bertrand,
Yes.
all I ask is that you do not sell the property.
Don't sell the property. What's your name? It would
Thank you
revert
so
back.
much. We appreciate
Thank
you
you.
coming out this evening. Thank you.
Buy a car from her.
But Mr. Vice, wait a minute.
Take
I don't-
30 days
there's no
to
way
do
I'm
that?
right now.
Hang
I'm
on.
on 13.
Yeah, you're on 13.
Item number 13, no action necessary. On February 2nd, 2017, the applicant withdrew the request.
Thank God.
Item number 14, consideration of adopting an ordinance authorizing the purchase of property located at 4406 Tamarick Street through funding received from
Move on
the
14.
FEMA
Second.
Hazardous Mitigation Grant Program to mitigate future flood losses to this repetitive loss structure. I have a motion by Mr. Landry and a second by Mr. Scott. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carry. Item number 15, consideration of adopting a resolution acknowledging that the annual municipal water pollution prevention audit has been conducted for sewage district number 11 of Ward 3 and 8 wastewater treatment plant. I have a motion by Mr. Andrew and a second by Mr. Collins. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carry. Item number 16.
Move on.
We have discussion, Mr. Landry?
I mean, it says that the audit's
Going
been,
back to number 15.
said the audit's been done, but it didn't mention the results. I guess we passed. Hopefully, we did a great job.
Yes.
Mr. Wainwright?
Mr. Wainwright.
Yeah, Mr. Freelo and his team did a great job. You know, the audit was, for all intentional purposes, a clean audit and well-received, so no problems out at the district.
We have clean sewage. That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Landry. Moving on to item number 16. Consideration of adopting a resolution approving an amendment to the professional engineering
16.
contract
On 16.
on behalf of Waterwork District Number 5 of Ward 3 and 8 to include additional services related to the water system improvement and expansion project, Phase 1. I have a motion by Mr. Latour and a second by Mr. Collins. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carry. Item number 17, consideration of authorizing the Director of the Division of Planning and Development to notify the following property owners to show cause at a public hearing on April 20th,
Move on 17 on board.
2017, as to why the structure on properties as stipulated should not be condemned. I have a motion by Mr. Landry and a second by Mr. Latour. Let me just read those properties into the record, please. A, 134 Charlie Stanley Loop, Starks area. B, 2631 Carolyn Drive, Moss Bluff area. C, 6928 McCowan Road, East Lake Charles area. D, 5944 River Road, LeBlue Settlement area. E, 4039 Ellis Street, East Lake Charles area. F, 1535 Miller Avenue, Westlake area. G, 1631 Miller Avenue, Westlake area. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carry. Item number 18, consideration of approving the recommendations in reference to the adjudicated property sales conducted on February 21st, 2017. Let me read those. Can I get a motion?
18.
Move on 18.
I have a motion by Mr. Scott on all bullets and a second by Mr. Collins. Let me read those into the record. A, Goss Ferry Road, Lake Charles, Paris Blackman Mouton. B, 4100 block of Reeves Avenue, Sulphur, Samuel Watkins. C, 3605 West Roosevelt, Lake Charles, Julio Vargas. D, 206 Gelpy Drive, Lake Charles, Patrick Thomas. E, 1737 Broadmoor Drive, Lake Charles, Gloria and Robert Seixsnyder. F, 506 Contour Drive, Lake Charles, Tim Harper. G, 506 Contour Drive, Lake Charles, Tim Harper. H, 1206 McNabb Street, Lake Charles, Lee Malone Marcellus. Thank you. I, 2618 Dare Street, Lake Charles, Whitetail Properties. J, east of 200 block of Lewis Street, Sulphur, Corey Cormier. K, 1105 Gerald Wash, Washington Street, Westlake, Whitetail Properties. L, Gerald Wash, Washington Street, Westlake, Whitetail Properties. Ernest Marcellus Road, DeQuincy, Lee Marcellus. N, north of Miller Drive, Vinton, Perry Premier Properties. O, 800 block of Brancher Street, Vinton, Erlene Prescott. There are some famous Prescotts in Vinton. P, 800 block of Francher Street, Erlene Prescott. Partial has been redeemed. Q, 4500 block of Jim Drake Road, Starks, Karen McGinnis. R, 300 block of Kelly Street, DeQuincy, Leonard Albrecht. S, 103 West Brimstone Street, Sulphur, Charles Ross McGraw. T, 3200 Burton Street, Lake Charles, Nicholas Priyu. Mr. Landry told me that was the correct pronunciation of that word. Thank you, Mr. Landry. U, 3200 Burton Street, Lake Charles, Nicholas Priyu. V, 308 East Napoleon Street, Sulphur, Dustin Gawthorpe. W, redeemed. X, redeemed. Y, redeemed. Removed, I'm sorry. It's been a long day. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carried. Number 19.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Consideration of adopting a resolution approving an extension of the contract between the Police Jury and Landscape Management Service on a month-to-month basis, and authorizing the parish purchasing agent to advertise for bids or requests for proposals for lawn and garden beautification and maintenance services at parish facilities and parks. I have a motion by Mr. Brame and a second by Mr. Hunter. Any discussion? We do have discussion. Mr. Scott?
I thought we already put this out. Didn't we approve this a few months ago? Can you kind of give us some where we at and why we are now where we're at?
Yes, we can. Dean does a good job of that. I'll let him come up and explain it.
Let's be saving us money, as I'm assuming. So.
Mr. Dean, please state your name and position with the parish, sir.
Dean Kelly, Director of Facilities. We're making some changes to this package as we go out. The main changes are to include all the commodities that we need to enhance our landscaping, and also a comprehensive list of all of the parish properties, all properties that we own. So with that, the package got a little bigger, but it's taking a little bit longer.
Do I still have the floor, Mr.
Yeah. Yes, you should do have.
So I'm guessing we are assuming that by them providing the things that we would normally purchase through purchasing, we're going to save money. And you do have a way to measure this, I'm assuming, if this is the route we're gonna take. I know that might be 2 or 3 questions in one small sentence, but.
Yes.
Cool.
So, you know, we've had this service contract since 2011, and it literally was a maintenance contract for those specific services, cutting the grass and so forth. And each time that we need to add a landscape or anything like that, it sparks, it causes us to go through another procurement process. By doing it this way, everything's competitively bid at one time. It's all one comprehensive contract, and ultimately it will drive down the overall cost.
So you had to do a lot of work, I'm assuming, to be able to tell them what you're looking for in the landscaping portion of it over this duration of this contract? I mean, that had to be kind of detailed, or is it open-ended?
No, it's very detailed.
That's what I thought. I was wondering how, that's a lot of
That's
weeds.
the reason for the
That's a lot of weeds to
month-to-month
go through to get
extension.
to that bid, so.
Yes.
All right, hey, I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Mr. Barris.
Thank you, Mr. President. Is this going to include, and then will this drive the price up now that we need fire retardant mulch? I mean, is that going to be, is that more expensive? I mean, I don't know where we're all going to put that, but does that complicate your job and just drive it up?
So the existing mulch, it doesn't just spontaneously combust. I'll spend some time and tell you a few stories. You can connect the dots.
Okay.
But we have removed the majority of that mulch. I have my staff working to remove the remainder of that. We were plagued with landscape fires last year, and sadly enough, this year, or this past weekend, we did have another. And we are doing our best to make sure that doesn't happen again. We did budget to replace all of that this year. Just so happened, we had one more fire before we were able to get it removed.
Well, at least you don't pay removal costs. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Barris.
Thank you.
Was any other jurors that have, did you have anything, Mr. White?
Yeah, even with the ban in place, we still have smoke fires being caused here, huh?
That wasn't in them.
I yield back.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any objection? Mr. Kelly, we thank you for that report, sir. Motion carried. Item number 20, take appropriate actions on terms of the following members of various boards and districts. Can I get a motion?
Second.
I have a motion
Move.
by Mr. Barris and a second by Mr. Collins. Let me read those into the record. A, Robin Martin, Quality Assurance Review Panel for
Mr.
Ambulance Service.
Each one of those has to be taken individually.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Gabb. Item number A,
Move to reappoint.
Mr. Robert Martin,
Mr. Rich.
Quality Assurance Review Panel. I have a motion by Mr. Collins and a second by Mr. Barris. Item B, Mr. Andy
Move to
Ordwin, Calcasieu
reappoint
Parish
Mr.
Public
Andy
Safety
Ordwin.
Communications District. I have a motion by Mr. Brame and a second by Mr. Landry.
Mr. President, I'm sorry, we didn't take action on A yet. I don't think there was a vote put to it. There's a motion and a second, but there was no
Okay.
vote. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Doing no objection.
Item A, I need a motion.
You got one.
Move and a second.
Okay,
Any objection?
any discussion? Any objection? Item A, motion carried.
I apologize, Mr. President.
No, that's okay, that's why we pay you, Mr. Sam. Item B,
Everybody's first.
Mr. Andy Ordwin, Calcasieu Parish Public Safety Communication District. I have a motion by Mr. Brame and a second by Mr. Barris. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carried. Item number
Move
C.
to reappoint.
Ms. Tanya Palermo, Calcasieu
Second.
Parish Public Safety Communications. I have a motion by Mr. Farnum and a second by Mr. Brame. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carried. Item D, Mr. Steve Smith, Gravity Drainage District Number
Move
2
to
of Ward
reappoint Mr.
7.
Steve
Second.
Smith.
I have a motion by Mr. Barris and a second by Mr. Farnum. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carried. Item E, Mr. Andrew Saunier, Gravity Drainage District.
Move to
Number 2
reappoint
of
Mr.
Ward
Andrew
7.
Saunier.
I have a motion by Mr. Barris and a second by Mr. Farnum. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carried. Item number F, Mr. Cody Clemens, Ward 4, Fire Protection
Move
District
to
Number 2.
reappoint Mr. Cody Clement.
I have a motion by Mr. Barris and a second by Mr. Farnum. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carried. Item number 21, consideration of adopting a resolution of condolences to be forwarded to the family of the late Anthony Tony
Move on 21.
Picaro.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Brame and a second by Mr. Hunter. Mr. Brame.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't know if y'all knew Tony, or I called him Anthony. I guess a lot of people call him Tony. I've known him probably my whole life. The Pecorino family, John's Pharmacy, I remember it on Alamo and Enterprise. And, the pharmacy, the family's just wonderful. When I was a little boy, I used to go in that pharmacy, and my mom and dad would send me over there to pick up things, and the parents were great and everything, but Anthony always came in the store, and, he had a lot of good interest of what I sold in there, and it was just in a week before he had passed away, and Anthony was a good photographer. He took a lot of good pictures, and his conversations, his demeanor was kind of like, kind of shy, but when you got to know him, he was just a great guy, and only 48 years old. To be gone is too young, but I just wanted to recognize him. I thank you for the support of the jury on this resolution, and he's going to be missed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Hunter.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm glad you put this on the agenda tonight, Mr. Brame. Tony was a great guy. My wife and I were at the Pioneer Club for our anniversary this year, and Tony was visiting with us. He was a lover of history. He really loved Lake Charles, and he was a smart guy, and he was a really nice guy, and he was a good guy. And I was so shocked when I heard this and so disappointed when I heard this. There's going to be a lot of people that miss Tony, and I'm certainly one of them. And I know Lake Charles as a whole, this whole city is going to miss Tony. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Hunter. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carried. Item number 22 is an advice that there are no board members whose terms will expire in the month of April 2017. I have number 23 is also an advised item that the voting precincts 361, 369, 405, and 761 will be closed on election date March 25th, 2017, to the determination that there are no registered voters eligible to vote on any municipal candidates or propositions on the ballot.
Move to adjourn.
Second. No, excuse me, Mr. Landry. I know it's been a long day, but we're gonna go a little bit longer. At this time, I would like for Mr. Tom Hafer to come forth and update us on movies under the stars.
Good evening, Tom Hafer, Communications and Media Director. JP, go ahead and play our video, please.
Parks are tobacco-free as of March 1st. Come celebrate with the Calcasieu Parish Police Jury Friday, March 3rd with a special edition of Movies Under the Stars, featuring the family favorite 101 Dalmatians, the original animated version, at Preon Lake Park beginning at 6:30. We'll have all the usual food and fun, plus free popcorn provided by the Louisiana Campaign for Tobacco-Free Living, plus free pictures with puppies from the Parish Animal Services and Adoption Center. Tobacco-free Parish Parks. Smell the flowers, not the smoke. Parish Parks are tobacco.
Just wanted to invite all of you to our event. It is tomorrow evening. We'll begin with the puppies and the popcorn and the fun at about 4 o'clock. The movie will start at 6:30, and we hope you can join us. A lot of work went into this, a lot of people within the police jury system that have helped out with that, and we're excited to launch our tobacco-free parks with this event tomorrow. So come join us.
Tom, great job. We asked everybody would come out. We have discussion. Mr. Hunter.
Thank you. Whose idea was it to take pictures with the puppies? That's a really good idea.
I would take credit for it, but it's not mine.
I assume they're adoptable dogs?
Absolutely, yeah. And we hope we have some Dalmatians, but we're not going to hold them back for a photo op.
There's going to be a lot of moms and dads are going to be mad at you guys when those kids get those puppies, and then they go to their moms and dads and say we could take them home. But that's a really good idea. I love that addition. Congrats, guys. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
I think that's a good idea of finding homes for those animals. Great job. Any other discussion? This time I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Collins and a second by Mr. Hunter. We are now adjourned.